UCF football is officially back. We're going to get into everything you need to know about the new Hampshire Wildcats, as well as the depth chart that just got released yesterday. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Charge On. As always, I'm your host, Sean Green. Before we get started, as always, a quick word from our sponsor, BetOnline. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for everything football. From the preseason NFL to college kicking off, BetOnline has every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. Think you know your stuff? Get in on our winner-take-all $300,000 NFL Survivor pool for the upcoming season. When the game's over, head on over to our online casino and get in on a game of blackjack or poker or unwind with our over 150 slot games. Head to the website today and use promo code BELIEVE and get in on the action. BetOnline, the game starts here. UCF football is officially back. It's time. It feels weird doing an episode on, technically recording this on a Monday. We're dropping it on Tuesday. Won't be our normal schedule, but that's what happens when a game is on Thursday. We have a lot to talk about, a lot to discuss. Nick, feels good. We talked about it last Friday. Feels really good. We have an opponent. Don't know how much we're going to talk about the opponent. It's like this every year with week one, but we have an opponent to talk about. So how are you doing and how excited are you? Not just for the season to start, but to get to Orlando on Thursday to watch some UCF football.
Yeah, I'm very excited. Hope everybody, first of all, enjoyed their week 0. We had some.
I did.
I know you did. I'm sure a lot of UCF fans. In fact, I know it. College football and its memes that are created on Twitter was like in mid-season form on Saturday. Hug a Florida State fan out there, or not, if you choose not to. But anyway, we get our show starts on Thursday, obviously, so definitely excited to get up there to Orlando. It's been a while since I have made the trip, but I'm anxious. I saw that's going to be a sold-out crowd. As for New Hampshire, I just was playing a little Dynasty earlier, and I started fresh because I'm going to try to go week by week, with the season. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll be able to pick some intel off of who these guys are a little bit. No, they just come up as FCS East. Yeah. So that didn't exactly work out. But, I'm excited to get up there.
Yeah, for those of you who maybe didn't watch our videos the last couple weeks, we are going to be very busy this season. For on Thursday, we'll be doing a pregame show. Nick, I still don't know where we're doing that. I will let you guys know where we're going to be at for the pregame show. The postgame show, we already know we're going to be in one of the cabanas down on the turf or on the field. So we know that. But pregame show, would love, once I know where that's going to be, you guys to come see us. But we're going to be very busy on game day, and it's coming up. I mean, it's going to be here in a couple days, and we get to see some UCF football. We're recording this on Monday, like I said, and before we get into New Hampshire, again, like I always say, time codes are down below, so if you don't want to talk about depth chart or you want to hear just about New Hampshire, the time code is down below, but we have to get into some depth chart, because I knew it was coming, Nick, but I don't even think I was just like, again, you get so in game mode that you're like, okay, we're going to talk about the opponent, and I'm like, oh, went right over my head, and I think there's some notable things on here. I have my little sheet of paper, because I'm coming straight from the press conference, and we're recording right after. Let's kind of go down. We're not going to just go position by position, but we'll start at the quarterback position and then go to the defense. But Ja'Cory Brown, quarterback 2, I think that's notable. We've been hearing it out of camp that he's been really impressive. So I don't think that's a shock to anybody, but figured I would note it out jump. At the running back position, it's a lot of ors on the depth chart. Johnny or Penny or Miles. But RJ Harvey is your clear-cut number 1. So I found that was interesting. Let's talk about this. I want to get your take. Trent Whittemore, wide receiver 3. I mentioned it. I thought Chauncey was going to end up winning the job, but we were saying there was a 3-person race between Trent, Chauncey, Jacoby. But Trent clearly just came out and impressed. So how good is it to see a guy that transferred in last year, hadn't really made an impact, he didn't really feel like he was going to get that role, come in and really just take the wide receiver 3 spot outright?
I mean, it's probably the biggest surprise that's all over this depth chart, both offensively and defensively. I'll just come out and say it. I wasn't really big on Trent Whittemore, even when they brought him in. And he was kind of buried on the depth chart last year. And when he got chances, just wasn't really impressed. I saw Steven Leonard put out some things today after he was listed as 3 about, some believe he was the most improved player in the camp. They talked about his 50-50, ball ability. Obviously, he's got good size. So he does bring that element to this wide receiver room that you could argue was lacking a little bit. They're not the biggest dudes in the world in that room. So I guess that was going for Trent Whittemore. But I mean, this is his 6th year of college football, the new normal. Yep. And, I looked at his numbers and it's like, I mean, he's only got just over 400 yards of offense in his first 5 seasons. So there really isn't a lot of production right there, but this obviously is his last go around in college football. So, I know he's listed as 3, but maybe it's the skeptic in me of I'm not sure that's going to stick. I think you're going to see a lot of moving parts, and the fact that you are opening up against a New Hampshire, which we don't expect the game to necessarily be the most competitive. I think you're going to see a lot of guys get some run out there and working in the offense, the first team offense that is, and getting a chance to grow a connection with KJ Jefferson, because you truly never know, Sean. You truly never know until you hit the field. We had some teams who were talking about, the best of the best when it comes to position groups, and then we saw them play on Saturday, and it wasn't really the case now, was it? So you truly never know. Huh?
Didn't seem like it.
It did not seem like it. So you truly never know until you hit the field. So we'll see what they have in Trent Whittemore. But clearly, the one thing I will say, it's like, I don't know if he entered camp as a number 3 guy. It sounds like something that he probably earned his way through there, and the coaching staff has rewarded him. So if that's the case, I mean, let's see how it plays out.
Yeah, it's going to be a wait and see. I think they said he got a lot of 50-50 balls. You said he was the most improved player in camp. A lot of people have been saying that. So I think what we've talked about before was the depth at that position is going to show at some point, and we'll see what happens in the first 2 weeks. Like, I think Chauncey Magwood has a real chance to make an impact this season. Javarius Johnson, another guy that kind of got lost in the sauce a little because he came in late, but he can make an impact. Jacoby Jones, another guy. So UCF has the depth at that position to, if Trent's not working or Trent's not doing well, you have some guys. But I'm happy for him, and I think he's going to make a pretty big impact early on this UCF team. Offensive line, none of the incoming transfers are starting. That was kind of expected. I talked on my depth chart predictions. Paul Rubelt has been talked about a lot. He's been on this roster for many, many years, Nick. We've been talking about Paul Rubelt for, he was here when Heupel got here, recruited him out of Germany, and he's finally getting a chance to start. And if you look at the offensive line, you got left tackle 6'7", left guard Adrian Medley 6'5", Caden Kittler center 6'3", Marcellus Marshall 6'5", Paul Rubelt 6'11". You talk about changing of going into a power conference and the size on the offensive and defensive line being big. The UCF offensive line is huge. They are big, and hopefully they can stick with this offensive line and not have the mix and match like they did last year, Nick.
Yeah, that's hopefully the plan. When it comes to Paul Rubelt, he's probably the most unknown quantity that's on that offensive line. I'm curious to see how that works out. Obviously, the guy's a behemoth of a human being. I mean, what's he listed at, like 6'11"?
6'11", 330.
6'11", 330. I mean, we thought Tylen Grable was big. Paul Rubelt's got him beat. So I'm curious to see how that works out. I'm really going to keep an eye on Adrian Medley as well, because he's been in this program. I think he came in that 2019 class, if you remember. So he's also been around since the Heupel days. He's dealt with some injuries. He's been backloaded on the depth chart, things like that. So this is his first crack at really being that true starting kind of caliber of a guy. And he's going to be right next to Caden Kittler, who I'm excited to see at center as well. So Amari Kite obviously is the mainstay from last year. I thought he was really impressive at that left tackle position. And then obviously Marcellus Marshall as well, another guy who has experience playing on this offensive line. So hopefully you get some continuity there. And like you said, you have some really good size on that offensive line. So definitely a spot that I'm hopeful to see.
Yeah, it should be interesting. We'll get our first look at the offense, obviously, on Thursday. But let's head over to the defense because I think that was the thing that a lot of people were wanting to see. A lot of incoming transfers, a lot of things that, it's the unknown. You have a new DC, a lot of new things happening. I was right, and I think we all were right about the linebacker position. Deshaun Pace, Ethan Barr, both starting at that linebacker role. One name that I wanted to mention, Andrew Harris. He finally got on there. He got on the depth chart, and I think you might see, obviously, Josiah Pierre, right? He came over from Texas Tech. He's listed as the backup for Ethan Barr, but I definitely think, Nick, with the linebacker specifically, and with a lot of these things on the defensive line and the defense as a whole, you need good backups. You need quality depth. Gus has talked about it, and for a guy like Andrew Harris to kind of start to impress really well, put on a lot of weight. He's listed as 223 right now. I don't know what he was listed when he came in, but I think it was under 200. Put on 20 plus pounds of weight. There's a good chance you could see Andrew Harris make a huge impact this year. And it's not just going to be for this year. It's moving on to next year is who's going to be those guys. And this is kind of the way the staff wants to go about it, is bring in some quality guys that can start for you this year and get those young guys some backup minutes and backup playing time so that next year they could take that next step. So talk about the linebacker position, the starters, and then getting a guy like Andrew Harris some reps this year.
Yeah, can you tell that they wanted, this was a point of emphasis for this staff, was to completely overhaul their linebacking core? Can you tell? Because Deshaun Pace, transfer. Alexander, transfer. Ethan Barr, transfer.
X-Ray Alexander.
Josiah Pierre, transfer. I mean, Andrew Harris is looking around like, oh, I'm the only dude that was here last year. So I think it'll be good in his development, especially if he sticks around after this season, because I know, in college football, you always got to watch it when you're not a starter. But I think it'll be good for him to probably play limited minutes, because I think they've brought in a lot of experience, some guys who have played all across college football. So listen, it's so cliche to say, but it's like, it can only go up, right? From what we saw last year. I know maybe I picked on him more than others, like a Jason Johnson, for example, because everybody was wowed at the fact that he made a lot of tackles. And I would say, okay, that's cool, but he's not making a lot of impact. There's not much impact play that I think I was seeing from Jason Johnson and some of these other linebackers. So I'm excited that they got some fresh bodies in there. And just in general, the whole defense feels very fresh when you look at it. I mean, you got 6 of the 11 starters are all transfers. And we talked a lot about that in the offseason, that this transfer class has a chance to be far more impactful than what we saw last year.
And really, you can make it's not really an argument, but you go down the list. Malachi, he didn't transfer. He was a UCF guy. Then you have Brandon Adams. He's a UCF guy. Braden Marshall, UCF guy. And then you can make the argument about Quadric Bullard, but I think it says Ladarius Tennyson or Quadric Bullard starting at that safety position. But you can make the argument, Nick, only 3 originally UCF guys that didn't transfer here are starting. These are basically all transfers, like Lee Hunter transfer, Ricky Barber transfer. So yeah, that's the new age of college football. That's the new age of this UCF defense. Let's talk about the defensive line really quick. John Walker. Gus didn't give any specifics. He just said he's going to be out for some time. He thinks that he'll be able to come back later on in the year, but he's going to be out for a good chunk. The negative is I think John Walker was going to take a big leap. He wasn't going to be a starter. He was going to be a backup defensive tackle, but as we know, you need quality depth, especially on the lines, and especially on the defensive line. Ricky Barber last season got injured and couldn't get healthy all year. So John Walker got extended minutes. With him alongside Matthew Alexander, that was going to be a great kind of backup defensive tackle position to get those guys rotated. So it sucks to see John Walker injured. Hopefully he can bounce back and come back at some point in the year. But I found it interesting, Nick, because they moved Dalen Dotson, who's another transfer. They moved him to defensive tackle, which he's an edge. UCF he's a transfer. They recruit him to play edge. Obviously, you have Malachi Lawrence at that position, and then Nigel Lee Kelly gets the start on the other edge. Do you think it sounds like they moved him to defensive tackle because of the John Walker situation, but does that kind of scare you a little bit given the depth issues UCF had last year. Because right now, you have Matthew Alexander, who I think me and you I like Matthew Alexander. I think he played really well in the minutes in the role that he got last year. But then besides that, you've got Dalen Dotson, who was supposed to be an edge. They move him to defensive tackle. And then surprisingly, Tyreek Robinson, who's a preferred walk-on freshman, is your other backup defensive tackle. So are you confident in the depth at this point at that position?
I guess is the way to put it.
Long-winded question, but yeah, like...
Yeah, I mean, certainly they can't afford... I mean, if Ricky Barber or Lee Hunter goes down, I mean, you hit an alarm button, clearly.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Matthew Alexander, he's been in this program for a couple years now. Like you said, he's given you some good depth minutes. I'm not convinced that he's a starting caliber, and I'm not saying they're asking him to do that anyway, even with John Walker being hurt, but we know that defensive tackle is traditionally a position where you see a lot of rotation because it's just hard to ask, two big bodies like Lee Hunter and Ricky Barber to play every single down. So we know there's going to be some rotation. So it does give Matthew Alexander an opportunity. Dalen Dotson, I'm very convinced that he was slid inside for that reason. And clearly they feel much better, I think, about the depth they have at edge than what they have inside, because Nigel Kelly does come in. Slight surprise that Nigel I think, got the start, because I think we heard a lot of good things about Caven Call and what he was doing throughout camp. So I was kind of interested to see. I thought Caven Call would have had the nod there, but they go with Nigel. But again, this is all for week 1. I mean, we're not going to learn. We've been saying it. We're not going to learn until week 3, really, how they look. But it's an opportunity for a lot of these guys where there's some competition to really sort of, figure out what their role is going to be. But going back to the original question, no, I don't really love the defensive tackle depth without John Walker being there. And it's such a bummer for him, because I really thought this was his year to break out. And now it's going to be one of those things. They're probably going to be very tight-lipped about this for the rest of the year. I'm sure Gus is going to get asked about it weekly, and probably be one of those no update things until I have an update type deal. And we'll see him later in the season. So just cross your fingers that Ricky Barber and Lee Hunter don't go down with any injury.
Yeah, he made it very clear in the press conference. He said, I will give you guys updates when I have them. So it was almost like, do not ask about John Walker until I tell you about John Walker. But you mentioned it. I think you look at a guy like Caven Call, who, from everything I've heard, has impressed a lot of people. He impressed a lot of people last year, impressed a lot of people this year. In my predictions, I said I think he might start. It makes sense that Nigel Kelly is starting, right? They're going, and we've talked about it on the show, we just talked about it. They're going after the older guys. This is a very important year. They're going after guys that have experience, that have got minutes. The guys that are coming up, like you look at the defensive end position, you have Isaiah Nixon, highly recruited, supposed to go to Oklahoma. He's now backing up Malachi Lawrence. He's going to get playing time. You have Caven Call and Jamal Johnson. Obviously, Jamal's been here a little bit, but Caven's younger, backing up Nigel Kelly, right? Andrew Harris, backing up at the linebacker position. Chasen Johnson. We haven't talked about the corners, but Chasen Johnson, freshman, backing up Brandon Adams. So, Antoine Jack. So, there's a clear-cut plan. It's weird. If we feel we need an older guy to start that has reps in college football, has been a starter at other places, we are not going to, just because we think a kid has a lot of talent and we're really high on a kid, we're not going to throw them out there if we feel they are not 100% ready.
Right.
And they clearly feel good, Nick, because they're backing up these guys. They're going to get playing time. You will see all these guys playing in these games. They're just not going to get the starter reps, which I think is good for a lot of these guys, like a Malachi Lawrence, who was backing up Josh Seliskar and now is getting minutes. So kind of give your take on all those guys, not individually, but as these young guys are developing and getting more of an opportunity in this UCF defense.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's encouraging, especially like you look at an Isaiah Nixon, you look at a Chasen Johnson, and Antoine Jackson. I mean, guys who are very young in their careers. The fact that they're on this depth chart, I think, is encouraging. And like you said, I think it's clear there's a plan there. And we've talked a lot about you use the word aura to describe Gus, the demeanor, whichever word you want to use. And and the importance of trying to win real ball, to be a real contender this season, right? And usually in college football, it's the teams that have experience that are the ones that eventually shine through. And you look at that defense outside of Braden Marshall, it's really all just about seniors, all over the at least on the starting depth chart, right? So, and especially you mentioned like Ladarius Tennyson, he was listed as the or next to Quadric Bullard. I mean, I think Gus recruited him, right? Going to Auburn. Yep. I think he coached him for a year there. And then he goes to Ole Miss, got some starts under his belt there. So he comes here, he played high-level college football, a lot of experience. So he's obviously going to rotate in and out with Quadric Bullard. That's great to see. But yeah, I think there is a clear plan there. They have these young guys that are waiting in the wings, and they're going to contribute. It's going to take all those guys, and I think you're going to see a lot of them play in these first 2 games.
Yeah, just rounding out the depth chart, Braden Marshall is the clear-cut nickel. They have Mac McWilliams listed as his backup, but Mac McWilliams is starting at corner.
Yeah, we haven't talked a lot about Mac McWilliams this offseason, have we?
No, transfer from UAB, played a lot of football there, and I will say, College Football 25 had it right. I was like, why is Mac McWilliams starting in College Football 25 for UCF? And they got almost everything right besides wide receiver, but Trent Whittemore wasn't in the game, so they couldn't have put Trent Whittemore at.
He's in the game. He's in the game.
Trent? I don't think so.
I just was playing earlier. He's in the game.
Oh no, you're right. Okay, so they got one thing wrong. Sheldon Arnold gets the one safety position. He's the clear-cut one because then you have Ladarius Henderson and Quadric Bullard fighting for that second safety position. So Sheldon Arnold, another transfer that comes in and starts, and then obviously Brandon Adams.
Yeah,
he's an NFL corner.
Yeah,
he's going to have a huge year, but that rounds out the depth chart.
Yeah, no Traquan Fagans on the depth chart either. USC transfer, which does not surprise me in the slightest. And
we said there was going to be a couple names that, it's always with our transfers, that there is a couple names that you think might make an impact or might, stand out. Older guys that just don't make it. And again, that's when we talk about young guys, Chasen Johnson and Antoine Jackson.
Yeah. I wonder too. I mean, he's not listed here because he's hurt. Like at Damari Henderson. Where he's sort of. I don't know what his timeline is necessarily. I'm not sure if or Gus has given an update there.
He gave an update. I don't think he's going to be on the roster for a little bit. I think it's probably going to be a similar timeline to maybe John towards the end of the season, maybe middle with him because he was already injured. So we don't really know much, but my guess is it's not going to be until middle to end of the year.
And that's a proven commodity that's lost right now. I mean, I think he was a friend. He almost made the All Big 12 team last year. So, you lose a guy right there who had a lot of upside. He was going into his junior year.
Yeah, it should be interesting. Again, a lot of new faces, a lot of new players that need to really step up, especially on that defense. They're just names on the roster right now.
Right.
At the end of the day, they're just names on this depth chart. At the end of the day, you've got to go out and earn your spot. And I think the one thing that I feel content with is knowing that Gus and staff put them through the ringer this fall. They didn't take shortcuts. They didn't hold people back. They really went after it. And again, with Ted Roof as your DC, I have no... You can make an argument about maybe you don't like the scheme Ted Roof runs. You don't like how he calls defenses. You can't tell me that they didn't put these guys through a hard fall camp and that these guys earned their spot. So excited to see what they do. Thursday's the first test. Stop the run, and you'll make me a happy camper. Unless then all of a sudden we can't stop the pass. Then I'm going to be just like Grumpy Sean last season. But any final thing, Nick, on the depth chart that got released?
I think I'm good on the depth chart. I think we went through some of the surprises, some of the candidates who could earn their playing time here. You didn't even touch the special teams, Sean. You didn't even finish the depth chart. But
we go right past it.
We go right past it.
Colton Boomer's the kicker.
Boomer's back.
Boomer's back. And
McCarthy's punting the football. There you go. And
McCarthy,
and
hopefully he has a better year.
Right. And X is returning the kicks and punts. So no surprises there.
Yeah, that's and then we'll talk if, I think Boomer's going to have a good year. I get the vibe Colton's going to have a really good year. But we'll see. Let's get into New Hampshire. I'm going to be honest, folks. With every week one that we have to do, it's always questionable. Because at the end of the day, me and you both know. Nick knows. I know. You know. It's probably going to be a blowout. UCF's going to put up a lot of points. Last year, they won 56-6. So we're not really going to get a lot from this game. So we're going to go through what you need to look out for New Hampshire, kind of what's gone on the last year or so, who you're going to see in the game specifically, and then again, what UCF needs to do. So, Nick, let's get it started. 6-5 last year. Had a decent year in the FCS last year. It was a tale of two teams, which seems like UCF. They were number 19 in offense. They were 102nd in defense. We'll get into the offense in a little bit, but the defense is basically the same, or not really the same. They only have a couple returning people. Do you have confidence that they're going to be able to stop UCF? And do you think it's more on UCF being able to score than New Hampshire's defense? I think I know the answer, but I feel like I'll lob that up to you.
No is the answer to the first question. The answer to the second question is yes. I don't see New Hampshire really putting much resistance against UCF's offense. I mean, it's a new year. Those numbers, like you said, they are last year, but I don't know how much you improve from 109th in the FCS. This is not even like FBS level. This is 109th in the FCS. So, yeah, I don't really see this one being very close defensively. I guess if you had to find, I was looking for some impact players. Dylan Ruiz, one of their defensive linemen, he had 12 sacks, 14 and a half tackles for loss, but that was in 2022. Took a step back last year, but from everything I've seen, he's a beast in the weight room, very strong kid. So he's going to be sort of that impact player I think you keep an eye on for New Hampshire. But outside of that, I don't really see much here that suggests that New Hampshire is going to be able to sort of keep this game close. And as you said, they also have a few notable departures in there as well.
I was trying to find, there is a good corner on the defense. Can't find his name. Didn't write it down. That's on me.
I think it's Noah Stansbury.
Is that number 11?
I believe so.
Okay. Noah Stansbury. He's good. They've had some FCS All-Americans come through here. They had 2 FCS All-American defensive ends. That was like from 2 years ago. But this defense is rough. And we kind of expect it. You're playing... It's so hard, and that's why I hate these week one games, because for UCF, you're going to be 1-0, but you need to really blow the doors off this team, because you can't leave them, you need to go into week 2 with, okay, you did what you're supposed to do. We know nothing yet. If you go in and you struggle a little bit and you get 3 and outs and you have to punt a couple times, then there's going to be the questions of, you kind of had some struggles against this type of team. What's it going to be like when you get to an actual football team? But let's continue talking about New Hampshire. They lost a big-time player, Nick. They lost a big-time player. They lost their 2 best players on offense last season. Max Brosmer, a quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in the FCS, headed to Minnesota. He's now the starting quarterback there. And then you lost running back Dylan Loeb to the Raiders. He was a senior. He went to the draft. He's now with the Raiders. It looks like he's going to make the team.
Right.
They were number 19 in offense last season. They were number 19 in the country. So when you look at an offense that was really good last year, same head coach, so you have the same type of scheme, which helps UCF. A lot of the times UCF is playing against, last season with Kent State, it was a brand new head coach. You didn't know what you were going to get. The season before was South Carolina State, you knew what you were getting. The season before that was Boise, and it was a brand new head coach, new system, new scheme. So is the offense, in your opinion, I know they lost 2 top guys, but they bring back the same 3 receivers. Is it going to be the same thing, or do you think they're going to need to switch it up with having to replace one of their top offensive players in Max Brosmer?
Yeah, I think when you lose Dylan Loeb to the NFL, talk about the running back position at least. That's probably not going to be able to replace that. And from what I researched, there's not exactly a true bell cow really waiting in the wings. It looks like it could be a committee approach, but like you said, there is some familiarity with the the three receivers coming back: Logan Tomlinson, Caleb Burke, and Joey Corcoran. So we'll see how that goes. From the quarterback standpoint, they lose. What was it? I just had his name in front of
Max
me.
Brosmer.
Max Brosmer, right? He goes to Minnesota, and very accomplished passer. I think he was second in passing yards last year in their conference. So you lose a very experienced passer. Seth Morgan, he comes in to replace him. He played at Division II Shepherd last year. Lot of experience, 40 games over 5 seasons. So this is his 6th year of college football. Very turnover prone, 35 interceptions in those 5 seasons. He threw 11 of those last year. So I would expect that UCF has a chance to potentially put pressure on him and make him give the ball away at least 2 or 3 times in this game. I mean, that would be ideal if you're UCF. I think you have a chance to. So, but again, you do got to respect them a little bit, even though they lose some of that production from last year. It was, top 20 in the FCS is nothing to scoff over. So we'll see. I'm sure they'll, but it's so hard though to really act like they're going to be in this game though. At the end of the day, that's just the reality.
That's the reality. And we said there's not much to talk about with the team like this because, first of all, trying to find footage on some of these players is almost impossible unless you want to watch in 420p. But you talk Seth Morgan, definitely throws a lot of picks. Had probably his worst year last year when it came to interceptions thrown, but he finished top 15 in Division II in yards and completions. So there is that. How much was he throwing? There's a lot of different things. He was in Division II. So you can't take much from that, but you can take some, information from that. What I found interesting, Nick, you mentioned trying to get turnovers, trying to turn the ball over to get those opportunities for your offense. Last year, that was a struggle. That was a struggle for UCF. Gus has made it an emphasis that we need to turn over the football. And you look at the game last year against Kent State, right? And it was 56-6, right? You didn't take any negatives. We were all on a high. John Rice Plumlee looked great. UCF offense looked great. The defense, if that's how the defense looked in that game, we were assuming that was just how it was going to be. Kent State only threw 1 interception. And they are FBS. It's a little different. But for UCF to really show that this defense has improved, yes, they need to stop the run, which they should do. They did it against Kent State. They did it against Villanova. They should do it here. I agree with Nick. You have to be able to turn over the football. With a quarterback like this, you have to show that the changes we made to the defense are going to move over to another game. It's not just because we're playing New Hampshire. We get that. But you played an inferior opponent in your first game last year, and it was a struggle to turn the ball over through the air. So kind of talk about that and what the challenge should be for the defense this Thursday when you know you're better, you know you're bigger, you know you're stronger, but you need to still try and show that you've improved somehow.
Yeah, I really want to see this. I want to see the speed of this defense come out. You're obviously going to have the athletic advantage over New Hampshire in this one. So I know Gus, I saw his press conference, which I think you went to today. He even mentioned, what was it? He wants to see hits that make the crowd go, ooh,
woo,
right? Woo. So hopefully we do get to see that. But I think they're going to deliver on that. I just don't have much concern for it. I really don't. You mentioned the scoreline last year against Kent State, which was a much better team than this New Hampshire squad, which, they didn't even get a vote at all in any of the top 25 polls. It's a very probably middle of the road FCS team. And that's why in terms of what New Hampshire's going to do to threaten UCF, it's really not there. It's not like you're playing one of the teams from the Dakotas or the Montanas, which seem to run FCS currently. That's not going to happen. So I think we're probably going to be leaving this game, and it's going to be sunshine and rainbows. It's going to be very lopsided, but again, I don't know how much we're really going to take away from it.
No, these first 2 weeks are going to be rough just from the standpoint of you're hiding behind a fake team. Not saying that this team can't be impressive and look really good.
And by the way, I would just say this going forward, and I haven't really paid attention yet to the schedules ahead. Like, I'm for if you want to schedule one, you know, team that you get that tune-up game to start the season. Cool. I don't know if I needed two of them necessarily. I'd like to schedule a little bit better in the future. Again, off the top of my head, I don't know what those schedules look like, but I'm good on going back to back right here with two underwhelming teams.
So next year, because you reminded me, next year you got Jacksonville State as your opener.
Okay.
North Carolina A&T Aggies.
See, that just didn't cut it for me. Oh, one or the other.
But the third week, you've got North Carolina coming into Orlando.
Right.
So you do get one of those games next year. And
Wasn't
it doesn't become
this
easy.
Was supposed to be the second of the game against North, then the first one against North Carolina get like canceled a few years ago.
It did.
This was like a home and home.
Yep. So this is the new year that we get to play them, which is next year. So UCF will get a little bit of a challenge next year with an out-of-conference opponent that's
they're playing Florida this year.
Yeah, so, they've got those type of games. But yes, this season specifically, and last season, but you didn't play Villanova until week 3, so at least you had a tough, second week. This is rough. Like New Hampshire and Sam Houston back-to-back, it's like, you're not UCF fans. KJ might look like the best quarterback in the country. The offensive line might look awesome. The defensive line might look really good. Linebackers, they might stop the run. You need to put on your realistic cap and wait until week 3. That's what you have to do. The only time we take the realistic cap off is if UCF looks really bad. If UCF just looks like the offense is struggling, they can't really block well, KJ's having to run out of the pocket a lot, they're not really stopping the run, but they're kind of leaky sometimes, then there is okay, this is not okay. But besides that, if UCF wins 70-0, you're playing an opponent you should beat 70-0. Is kind of what we're saying. But let's go into predictions. It's 40 minutes. We talked about depth chart for 25, a 15-minute preview for New Hampshire. I'll be honest, sounds better than what I thought we could have done, so I'm happy with it. The spread right now is 41.5 on BetOnline. 41.5 for the Knights. I have a couple. We're going to do a couple because I'm going to do the spread of the game if we think we'll cover that. And I'm interested, and I'm not going to even, I want to ask you first, Nick. Do you think they cover the spread first? Do you have a score in mind? And do you think UCF scores over 53.5? That's they scored 56 last year against Kent State. Do you think they score over 53.5? And what's your score prediction on if they cover the spread?
I think they score over 53.
Ooh, okay.
I'm going 56 as well for this year, like they did against Kent State. I think they put up 56, and I'll give New Hampshire 3 field goals. I'll go 56-9 in this one.
Okay.
So the other would be covered in spread.
Yeah, that would cover. That's a big spread. They won by 50 last year. I think they can cover the spread. I'll go them to cover. This is weird. It's a weird type of game because there's so many new pieces, especially on offense, and we don't know how KJ is going to play. I'm going to go like 50. I'll go 49-6. I'll go 49-6. I think I like the 56 mark. I think that would mean they don't cover the spread, right?
Right.
That would mean they don't cover the spread. No, they would cover the spread. They'd cover the spread. They just wouldn't.
Don't ask me to do math. Don't
if I go 49-6, that'd be 40.
Cover the spread.
43. So that'd cover the spread. I think they will score 50, but I'm trying to be more realistic this year. Realistic Sean needs to come out sometimes.
Oh, so you're taking a piece out of my playbook.
I'm trying to.
Try to be realistic.
Yes,
okay.
I'm trying to. Listen, last week I said 9-3. I think that was my usual Sean prediction. This week I'm trying to be more realistic. Also, because if they go over it, then I can hype it up better. Like, hey, I was wrong. Look. So I'm going to say 49-6. I think UCF should win this game easily. I don't know how much KJ plays. I don't know how much a lot of the starters will play. But at the end of the day, we just need to see good fundamental football, beat the team by a lot that you're supposed to beat by a lot, stop the run. I don't care that it's against New Hampshire. You have to do what you have to do to prove that you're a better team this year. And you might not prove it in this game. You might not prove it next week, but you need to show that there is a slight difference. And you can tell. You can tell, okay, this team's just a little different. You won't know until week 3, but that's our little thing. So, Nick, any final thoughts on New Hampshire depth chart? Anything before Thursday that we need to get off our chest?
No, just excited to get there again and see everybody. Do we have there's no theme for this game, is there, for the fan base, like for what you need to wear?
You know what? Let me look that up while we're here. I don't know if there is. Like, there might be.
I was doubting that there'd be. We haven't gotten any uniform reveal either, have we?
No.
For those of you
but
who
I also
care.
don't know if because they put out that game week graphic where it was the black with the white number and the gold helmet. I think they might just go simple like that for the first game.
See, I've always felt the first game is for your traditionals, black or gold top or gold helmet and then black on black. I'm a traditionalist like that for the first game.
Yeah, I can't find it, but I don't know if I think it's just wear whatever you want, especially these first 2 weeks. So no theme.
No. Sold out crowd. So you
Please
don't get to. Oh, I was just about to say this. You don't get to run your mouth if it's halftime and half the crowd leaves. You don't.
I mean, listen, you got to see the backups. You got to see the future of UCF play potentially.
I'm sure the student section cares so much to see the backups play. I'm sure they're so invested.
I care.
Well, you're not in the student section.
I'm not. I will not. I promise I will not mention the crowd leaving. On our post-game show, I won't mention it for at least 10 minutes. And on our post-game pod, I won't mention it at all. Even though that does bug me. But I also get it. It is a Thursday night. So I'm going to give it a pass for this game. Against Sam Houston, there's no pass. It's a Saturday night. I don't care what the score is. And we're not even to Sam Houston yet, but I don't want to hear any excuses for Saturday night. All right, everybody. That's going to do it. Listen, it's always the roughest one is always the first one, Nick.
Oh, quit it. We're talking football. We're not Meg here. We're not
No,
Meg.
I'm talking about the pod. This pod will be the roughest of the season. We're getting our sea legs under us again.
We're good. We're back in a groove. We're good.
We're going to get in a groove really quick. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, please like, subscribe, comment, share, do all that you do. We greatly appreciate it. Football is back. I am so pumped. I'm excited to be in the bounce house. Me and Nick, first time for UCF credentialed media members. First time. Doing the pod for 3 seasons. Like I said, 2 years. We'll be at the bounce house. We'll be up in the press box. Busy days. Busy days for us. So make sure, like I said, follow me, follow Nick. Tune in on Thursday, 90 minutes before game time, 90 minutes before kickoff when you're driving in. Put us on at Charge On UCF on YouTube. We'll have your pregame show. To be completely honest, we're going to need a lot of you in there and asking questions because this was our New Hampshire preview. We're not going to be able to really go too much in depth on New Hampshire for the pregame. And then postgame show, 30 to 45 minutes after the game ends. I think we're going to go to the Gus presser and then right after hop out and do our post-game show there. And then post-game pod on Friday. So that's kind of the schedule for this week. But thank you so much for tuning in as always. This has been Charge On, presented by Bet Online. We will see you for kickoff on Thursday.